A realm seldom seen by the general public exists behind the Vatican's walls. Confidential records, secret graves, and long-lost knowledge that would be disastrous to expose. Rumors have swirled around the Catholic Church for generations, claiming that its very core contains secrecy, lost prophecies, and mysterious disappearances. What exactly is the Vatican trying to conceal? How come we've been kept in the dark for this long? What if the most dangerous Catholic secrets were always designed to remain hidden? If someone were to see too much, trying to forewarn us, but was aware of too much? Malachi Martin, father, was more than a priest. He professed to have read the most sacred documents held by the Church, including the Third Secret of Fatima, and was an insider in the Vatican as well as an expert in ancient languages. In his latter years, though, Martin went from being Rome's devoted servant to one of its most terrifying detractors. He made claims about secret cabals fighting a spiritual battle within the Church and satanic infiltration. Subsequently, he passed away under situations for which there were no satisfactory explanations. Yet his cautions persisted even after his passing. Rumors persist. Works never published. Talk shows were canceled. The files would not open. What is the legacy of Malachi Martin? Why, therefore, has no one had the guts to make it public? This is the tale of the missing files and the truths that may have sacrificed themselves to keep them safe. There was more to Malachi Martin than just commentary. He was born in Ireland and became an accomplished scholar and priest who was well-versed in Semitic culture and spoke many ancient languages, biblical theology, and archaeological research. Cardinal B, a key member in the Second Vatican Council, was his boss in the 50s and 60s, and he was involved in delicate theological discussions with Jewish and Orthodox authorities. Martin asserted that he had deciphered classified materials during this period, including information about satanic activities within the Church and the Third Mystery of Fatima. Allegedly pressured into leaving the Jesuit order, Martin started writing books in the late 1960s that combined political analysis with divine wisdom and more ominous warnings. The Jesuits' Keys of This Blood and Windswept House, a semi-fictional but mostly confessional work, were among these. According to Martin's interviews, 85% of his fictional works were inspired by true stories, and he concealed a lot of material that he couldn't publish in the files I left behind. In the 1990s, Father Malachi Martin indicated at the personal diaries detailing his experiences while in the Vatican, as well as highly secret documents like letters, unpublished manuscripts, audio recordings, and more. Some of his old associates claim that these documents were kept in private safes in Rome and New York, or that they had been given to a small group of people with the explicit command to be retrieved at the proper moment. Martin emphasized that these were not just private documents. He put them together with the intention of warding off false prophets and preparing the next generation to deal with the spiritual crisis he saw coming. There has never been an official tally of these files, but rumors abound that they may hold highly confidential information, such as unpublished passages from Martin's book Windswept House, in which he allegedly used real names and described occult rites inside the Vatican with more explicit detail. There is a lot more information in the exorcism records, such as transcripts and notes from cases of demonic possession in which Martin had been involved or had witnessed, compared to what was in Hostage to the Devil. Reflections on the Third Fatima secret, which, according to Martin, the Vatican had hid on purpose. Apostasy at the highest echelons of the Church and a global scale of spiritual deceit were prophesied in the secret, according to him. Exchanges of letters with high-ranking Vatican officials that may reveal the. Within the Church's hierarchy, there are groups like Freemasonry, communism, and even satanic cults. Documents purportedly suppressed or discreetly dismissed by Vatican commissions concerning prophecies and visions gathered from mystic seers and Marian apparitions. Martin may have included his final judgments of Pope John Paul II and his successors in the files, according to several of his closest admirers. The next one won't be like him, Martin mysteriously said in an obscure interview. There will be external and internal forces exerting pressure from the inside. Whoever makes it this far will have proven themselves. Those files have remained secret ever since. They have only made matters worse by remaining silent, which begs the disturbing question: what did Malachi Martin know? He left behind a lot of things, but nobody had the guts to open them. Many were hoping that Malachi Martin's secret records would be made public after his mysterious and abrupt death in 1999, which was said to have been caused by an unexplained fault. Some even felt it was prompted by an unseen force. Still, there was not a. Only one file has been found. Nothing has been said or issued by any formal institution claiming to be representing his legacy. Those who were once very close to Martin are now either completely silent or have vanished from view. Some of the papers supposedly went missing soon after he passed away. One person who interviewed Martin privately in his final days recalled, he said, the worst was yet to come. There would be a counterurge of false light and the true. Faithful would have to suffer in silence. We wouldn't see it all, but our children might. Could those buried files contain the proof behind his final and most chilling warnings? In the decades since his death, a growing number of researchers, theologians, and even conspiracy theorists have embarked on a search for the lost Malachi Martin files. From combing through radio show transcripts to decoding cryptic footnotes in his books, the community has begun piecing together what might be hidden. Digital archives have emerged, attempting to reconstruct his thoughts, and several groups claim to be in contact with individuals who possess parts of his original documents, yet fear repercussions if they publish them. The Vatican, for its part, has never acknowledged these materials. In fact, it has remained remarkably silent on Martin's legacy, neither condemning nor honoring him. Some wonder whether this silence speaks volumes. Was Malachi Martin, a prophet ahead of his time, one silenced by powers he tried to expose, or was he a brilliant but paranoid theologian who became consumed by the darkness he confronted? The truth may lie somewhere in the shadows he warned us about. And until the full contents of his hidden files are brought to light, we may never know the full depth of what he witnessed or what he tried to protect us from. What do you think? Was Father Malachi Martin telling the truth about secret Vatican rituals, suppressed prophecies, and the hidden war within the Church? Could his missing files contain the final keys to understanding a global spiritual crisis? Or is this all just a myth built on fear and imagination? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, sometimes what's most dangerous is what we were never meant to read. Buried deep within the Vatican's forbidden vaults, tucked away in brittle scrolls no outsider was meant to see, there exist ancient world maps that don't match anything you learned in school. These maps depict continents that shouldn't exist, coastlines drawn centuries before they were supposedly discovered, in vast lands marked with strange creatures and forgotten cities. They challenge not just geography, but our very understanding of the past. Unlike modern maps, they weren't built with satellites or science. They were built with memory, myth, and perhaps a secret knowledge that was never meant for public eyes. For centuries, scholars dismissed them as fantasy. But today, a new generation is asking, what if these maps weren't wrong, but just buried too deep in history? What if the world we know is just one version of a much larger, older, and stranger Earth? Welcome to the realm of ancient maps that defy official history and may reveal truths long hidden beneath ink, parchment, and time. At the heart of this mystery lies one of the most secretive institutions in the world, the Vatican. The Vatican Apostolic Archive is said to contain thousands of documents, including maps that date back to the early medieval era, preserved through the centuries by monks and scholars. Many of these maps were created before the era of global exploration and seem to depict territories that should not have been known at the time. Scholars who have been granted rare access describe some of these maps as theological in layout, but curiously detailed in geography. Jerusalem is often placed at the center, symbolizing the spiritual center of the world. But more importantly, these maps include territories marked with cryptic Latin phrases like terra incognita, unknown land, Hixent Drakens hereby be dragons, or even Regio Piorum land of the Pygmies. But beyond religious symbolism and medieval imagination, some maps go far further, depicting coastlines that match modern Antarctica without ice or islands in the Atlantic that match known landmass. One of the most controversial and provocative aspects of ancient maps lies in this. They depict lands that do not exist on modern maps. These are not just symbolic blank spaces. Many of the maps illustrate clearly defined continents complete with mountains, rivers, and even named cities and regions that, according to official history, medieval Europe had not yet explored. The most famous example is the Piri race map drawn in 1513 in Turkey. Though it did not originate from the Vatican, this map appears to depict the coast of South America and even a portion of Antarctica, without ice long before either region was officially discovered. This raises the unsettling possibility that an ancient knowledge of global geography may have once existed but was erased or censored. Equally strange are the maps, believed to be stored within the Vatican archives, which portray a large continent west of Africa and south of the Azores drawn centuries before the New World came into view. These maps are not simply rough sketches. They include place names, mountain ranges, and descriptions of populations, as if the mapmakers had real knowledge of these lands. Then there is the phenomenon of phantom islands, such as High Brazil, Antilia, and Thursday, which appeared on nautical maps for centuries and were only removed in recent times. These islands were described in such rich detail with kings, inhabitants, and cultures that one might think they were real. So we must ask, were these simply the result of error myth from sailors, or were they records of expeditions deliberately hidden from official history? One of the most debated ideas among ancient map researchers is the possibility that long-lost civilizations may have possessed geographical knowledge far beyond what we know today. The remaining mysterious maps seem to hint at a forgotten global knowledge system developed during a pre-Adern era in which humans may have understood the true shape of the Earth's major sea routes and even a macro structure of continents. Some researchers even believe that these maps are the legacy of a primitive yet remarkably accurate topographic tradition passed down through generations from advanced civilizations, possibly legendary cultures such as Atlantis, Mu, or Lemura. Going even further, many of these maps appear to be linked to astronomical phenomena, global energy grid systems, or sophisticated mathematical proportions, things that require deep understanding of the Earth's dimensions and structure far beyond the capabilities of medieval societies. Most remarkably, all of this was supposedly achieved without satellites, GPS, or any modern technology. This raises a profound question. Could humanity have once reached a glorious level of development only to vanish, leaving behind maps as silent witnesses to a forgotten world? Why would such maps be hidden away? Is it because they challenge religious narratives, colonial history, or scientific consensus? Or is it because they contain knowledge that could disrupt the current understanding of human history and geography? Throughout the centuries, the Vatican has played a careful role in curating the flow of information. Certain texts were labeled heretical and others simply vanished. It's possible that some maps were considered too politically dangerous or theologically problematic, especially if they depicted regions not yet Christianized or suggested prior knowledge of the world outside biblical chronology. In some cases, maps may have been misunderstood or dismissed for being inconsistent with modern perceptions. But a closer look reveals something stranger. Patterns across maps from different sources separated by geography and centuries showing similar unverified regions. Coincidence or convergence of forgotten knowledge. For too long, these maps have been treated as decorative or symbolic. But now, as satellite imaging, ocean floor mapping, and climate science uncover new anomalies like submerged structures, ancient coastlines, or massive underwater plateaus, some of the details on these ancient charts start to make eerie sense. Could these maps be echoing the geography of a past Earth? A time before rising sea levels buried cities, before pole shifts altered coastlines, before entire civilizations disappeared from history. One particularly interesting point. Several maps seem to show Antarctica without its ice sheet, a fact confirmed by 20th century seismic radar mapping beneath the ice. If these ancient maps are accurate, who made them and how? The ancient world maps stored in places like the Vatican may not just be historical artifacts. They might be fragments of a forgotten world order drawn by those who knew more than we do or passed down through secret channels of knowledge. Whether you're a skeptic or a seeker, one thing is clear. These maps lie outside the official story. They invite us to question what we know, to look beyond the sanitized timelines of textbooks, to ask, what if we've only been told half the story? And maybe, just maybe, the key to unlocking our real past has been waiting silently in a dark archive beneath Vatican stone. If these maps truly reflect an ancient body of knowledge that once existed, then it would completely change the way we view human history. But what do you think? Is this just a strange coincidence? The imagination of ancient minds, or evidence left behind by a civilization that vanished from human memory? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe in hidden knowledge, or do you stand with what official history tells us? We'd love to hear your perspective. For nearly 2,000 years, history has told us that the early Christian church was built, shaped, and led almost entirely by men. But what if that story is incomplete deliberately, so hidden beneath layers of doctrinal edits, buried in forgotten manuscripts, and faintly echoed in ancient catacomb art, lies a very different narrative? A time when women preached, led, and were called apostles. They were not just helpers. They were the shepherds, the spiritual guides, the teachers, and then they disappeared. This wasn't by accident. As Christianity transformed into empire and theology hardened into hierarchy, the role of women wasn't merely overlooked. It was erased. Names were altered. Titles were mistranslated. Powerful female figures were cast aside or recast into silence. And for centuries, the world accepted this version of history without question. But today, scholars are peeling back the layers. And what they're finding isn't just surprising, it's revolutionary. Because if women once stood at the heart of the church who decided they no longer could, and more importantly why, one of the most glaring examples of this erasure is the case of Junior, a woman mentioned by the Apostle Paul in Romans 16, verse 7, as being outstanding among the apostles. For centuries, this reference stood uncontested. Junior was honored in the early church as a female apostle, a position of high spiritual authority. But somewhere along the line, something changed as Latin translations of the New Testament gained dominance. Particularly during the medieval period, Junior's name was mysteriously altered to Juniors, a masculine form that does not exist in any known Roman records as a real name. The reasoning male scholars could not reconcile the idea that a woman could be considered an apostle. So, the text was simply adjusted to fit their worldview. This is not a matter of debate. It's a documented linguistic alteration, and it's only one of many. Among the many apocryphal texts unearthed in the sands of Egypt and hidden monasteries lies the Gospel of Mary attributed to Mary Magdalene. Far from the repentant sinner or prostitute of Western tradition, this Mary is portrayed as a teacher confident and possibly the spiritual equal of Jesus himself. In this text, Mary shares divine teachings that the male disciples did not understand. When she speaks, Peter becomes visibly uncomfortable, asking, "Did he really speak privately with a woman and not openly to us?" It is Levi who defends her, rebuking Peter and affirming Mary's wisdom and strength. The Gospel of Mary was not included in the canonical New Testament. Was it because its theology was heretical, or because it elevated the voice of a woman in a way that challenged early patriarchal structures? One of the most troubling and undeniable signs that the role of women in the early church was deliberately erased lies in the subtle manipulations of religious texts, especially through centuries of translation and copying of the Bible. As Christianity evolved from a persecuted faith into a powerful political religious institution under the Roman Empire, the canonical texts no longer remained untouched. They were modified, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, to reflect a new model of power in which men held exclusive control over spiritual leadership and institutional authority. In many Greek manuscripts of the Bible, modern scholars have identified that gendered nouns and pronouns were altered when translated into Latin, making it appear as if all important roles within the community were exclusively male. Female names associated with leadership, such as Junior or Phoebe, were gradually masculinized or reassigned to lesser titles. Specifically, Phoebe, whom Paul refers to as a diakonos deacon and prostatus patron or leader, was later translated in many versions of the Bible simply as a servant. This mistranslation not only diminished her status, but also stripped away the implication that she had the authority to lead and teach within a Christian congregation. Worse still, archaeological sites across Asia Minor and southern Italy have revealed inscriptions and stone carvings indicating that women once served as officiants or even priests. Yet, when later scholars examined these records, such evidence was overlooked, edited, or reinterpreted through a male-centered lens, completely dismissing the possibility of female leadership. All of these acts, though seemingly isolated, were in fact woven together into a coordinated strategy to reinforce the image of the church as a patriarchal institution. This was no accident. It was a calculated editorial project carried out over centuries designed to create the illusion that tradition had never allowed women an equal voice in matters of faith. But as we peel back each layer of language, inscription, and translation, we are confronted with a startling truth. What we now call tradition may be nothing more than the outcome of countless biased editorial decisions made to serve a male-dominated structure. Beyond the realm of words, the artifacts of early Christianity also hint at this lost legacy. Inside the catacombs of Priscilla in Rome, one can still see wall paintings depicting women in liturgical garb raising their arms in a clear posture of blessing or preaching stances later reserved only for male clergy. Some mosaics from early Christian churches show women seated in a circle of male apostles, indicating equal status. In one 4th century mosaic in Ostia, a woman is labeled Episcopa Theodora, meaning Bishop Theodora. Despite modern denial, the evidence stands. The early church did not exclude women from leadership. It celebrated them. Yet, as centuries passed, these images were quietly neglected. Restorations dulled the feminine features. Labels were scratched off. The institutional memory was wiped clean. The deliberate nature of these omissions suggests more than coincidence. As Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, structure, hierarchy, and political control became essential. The clergy had to reflect imperial ideals, male authority, lineage, and order. Women who could not serve in the army, inherit noble titles, or be Roman citizens in the same way men could were now seen as theologically inferior regardless of their earlier spiritual roles. And so, like a slowly closing gate, the church redefined holiness in masculine terms. The sacred became male. The feminine was recast as passive, silent, and secondary. In recent decades, scholars, many of them women, have worked tirelessly to reconstruct the missing chapters of early Christian history. Through comparative manuscript studies, archaeological evidence, and feminist theology, a more inclusive narrative is emerging. This isn't about rewriting history. It's about recovering what was deliberately lost. The question we must ask ourselves isn't just why were women excluded, but rather what kind of spiritual wisdom, leadership, and understanding did the church sacrifice in order to maintain male dominance? Because when we silence half of humanity, we don't just lose their voices, we lose their visions, their interpretations, and the sacred balance they bring to the spiritual world. What do we risk by continuing to deny this buried truth? And what might we rediscover if we dared to listen again to the silenced apostles of the past? What do you think about this? If women once held spiritual leadership roles in the early church, should history be rewritten? Were the altered translations, edited texts, and erased names part of a deliberate power strategy, or simply linguistic misunderstandings over time? Do you believe these hidden legacies deserve to be restored, not to challenge faith, but to reveal the truth. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Is it time we finally listen to the voices that were silenced for nearly 2,000 years? Music, there exists a kind of book that even a cardinal is forbidden to touch. Manuscripts that appear in no library are listed in no banned index and are not even officially acknowledged to exist. These texts aren't lost. They are intentionally sealed, in the one place that holds them, the Vatican. Hidden behind the ancient walls at the heart of Catholic faith lies a collection of demonology manuscripts deemed unimaginably dangerous. No one is allowed to read them. No one may copy them. No one is even permitted to ask about them. These are not simply books. They are gates of forbidden knowledge locked tight by the very hands that believe in heaven and fear hell. Unlike the works listed in the Index Liorum Prohibitorium, the Church's official register of banned books deemed heretical or dangerous to the faith, these forbidden demonology manuscripts are not documented anywhere at all. They are not merely publicly restricted. They exist under a much higher level of secrecy, one so deep that even senior theologians are denied access. Only a very small number of high-ranking clergy within the Vatican are ever granted temporary access, and only in connection with rare and serious cases of exorcism. As a result, these manuscripts are not only dangerous in their content, but are entirely hidden from public awareness. Their complete absence from any official banned list raises a troubling question. Could it be that what lies buried at this deepest level is something the Church intends to keep hidden forever? The Vatican's absolute ban on these books is not merely because they contradict doctrine, but because the content within contains highly dangerous practical rituals. These are not abstract theological writings on demonology. They are explicit instructions for summoning, commanding, or sealing demonic entities. Some ancient manuscripts are even believed to list the true names of demon kings' names, which according to ancient traditions, grant power over their souls. Reading, even accidentally speaking aloud, these passages, according to the Church's belief, could open a dangerous gateway between humans and the demonic realm. Those lacking spiritual preparation may fall into obsession, lose control, or become influenced by entities beyond their understanding. The Vatican considers the dissemination of such knowledge as akin to handing over the key to a door that should never be opened, and thus the absolute ban is seen as a way to protect not only doctrine, but also the spiritual safety of all humanity. Although the Vatican remains silent publicly, certain internal exorcism training documents circulated in Rome have recorded disturbing incidents linked to these forbidden texts. Many young priests in training have experienced severe psychological complications, including hallucinations, paranoid delusions, and in some cases, sudden unexplained death after attempting to access or study sealed demonology manuscripts. Even more unsettling, some reported hearing strange voices in their minds while reading ancient passages despite being in completely silent environments. These phenomena defy simple psychological explanations, prompting the Vatican to become even more determined to seal off all access, rejecting requests, even from esteemed scholars and seasoned theologians. To the Vatican, these documents are no longer mere books. They are a genuine threat to the human spirit. The Vatican's absolute ban on demonology manuscripts is not merely a doctrinal precaution. It reflects a deep, multi-layered fear that spans spirituality, faith, and historical legacy. Three primary reasons are often cited to explain why these books are not only withheld, but buried so thoroughly. It's as if they never existed. First, the spiritual danger is not to be underestimated. According to Church teachings, summoning rituals, if performed incorrectly or by untrained individuals, can result in severe consequences. The practitioner may lose mental control, fall under possession, or establish a real connection with demonic entities. What's striking is that these dangers are not just part of religious law. They've been documented in real-life exorcism cases, reinforcing the Church's belief that such risks are genuine and must be strictly prevented. Second, publicizing knowledge that contradicts doctrine could destabilize the foundation of faith. If the ideas contained in these demonology texts, which often run counter to traditional theology, were widely disseminated, the Church fears it could trigger widespread confusion among believers, potentially giving rise to new heretical movements and causing serious fractures in the theological structure that Christianity has preserved for millennia. Lastly, the Vatican may be protecting its own history. Some scholars speculate that in the past the Church had certain ties with ancient mystical traditions, and sealing these texts may be a way to hide episodes of cooperation with darkness they would prefer the public never discover. Altogether, these three factors have made demonology manuscripts some of the most tightly guarded secrets in the Vatican's entire history. Some researchers who had brief access to the forbidden demonology manuscripts describe the experience as unlike reading any ordinary book, more like interacting with a sentient presence. The symbols within the texts didn't follow recognizable linguistic structures, but resembled a kind of living code moving in their own way within the reader's mind. One individual even recalled that while looking at the page, they felt as if something was staring back at them from beneath the ink. A rare excerpt from a Vatican exorcism training manual issued a chilling warning. If a text is sealed not because of heresy, but because it causes the reader to hear what should never be heard, then it is no longer a book. It is an open gate. That sensation, even if fleeting, left such a heavy spiritual imprint that none dared to touch it a second time. To this day, even though the Vatican has declassified thousands of ancient documents dating before the 17th century, the manuscripts on demonology remain completely sealed off as if they never existed. No one knows exactly how many such texts there are, what language they were written in, who authored them, or whether they are still being preserved or have already been secretly destroyed. This absolute silence not only deepens the mystery, but also fuels suspicion that something too dangerous to reveal still lies, hidden, a kind of knowledge the Church believes the world is not yet ready to confront. The final question remains unanswered. Is the Vatican protecting humanity from dangerous knowledge or concealing something far beyond our imagination about the supernatural world? If one day these sealed manuscripts were to be revealed, humanity might face two possibilities: enlightenment unlocking forgotten ancient truths about the soul and the universe, or destruction for awakening things that were meant to remain forever silent. What do you think about the Vatican's absolute ban on these manuscripts? Is it a necessary act to protect humanity from dangerous knowledge, or the greatest cover-up in the history of faith? If you had a chance to access these books, would you read them or leave them untouched forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to let us know. Do you believe in real supernatural danger or see it as a tool of religious control? What if buried deep within the Vatican lies the genetic code of Jesus Christ himself? And what if the church guardian of that secret has spent decades ensuring the world never finds out? Imagine a single drop of blood, a fragment of cloth, a relic long hidden behind sealed doors holding within it the DNA of the most influential figure in human history. Not a metaphor, not a symbol, but biological evidence. Science today can sequence ancient genomes, identify kings from millennia past, and even clone extinct animals. So why not Christ? Whispers of hidden tests, suppressed results, and silent scientists have haunted the edges of this question for years. But one thing remains undeniable. The Vatican guards its relics, not just with reverence, but with ironclad control. Access is forbidden. Findings are locked away, and every attempt at scientific inquiry is met with a wall of holy silence. This isn't just about belief. It's about power and what happens when science dares to knock on heaven's door. All efforts to conduct scientific research on relics related to Jesus Christ quickly encounter a major obstacle: the Vatican's near absolute control over access to these sacred objects. For centuries, The Vatican has quietly amassed a vast collection of relics, strictly guarded behind closed doors, kept entirely out of reach of independent scholars and the public. Notably, many of these relics are believed to contain biological traces, possibly even the DNA of Christ. A prime example is the Shroud of Turin, the most famous relic believed to bear the image of Jesus' crucified body. Although carbon dating tests were conducted in 1988, the process was tightly supervised and only a small piece of cloth was tested, which many experts later claimed came from a patched area from the Middle Ages, not the original fabric. Since then, all further proposals for deeper analysis, especially those involving modern DNA extraction techniques, have been rejected by the Vatican. Beyond this, researchers have accused the Church of blocking access to other relics, such as the cedarium of Edo, fragments of the True Cross, or the bones of John the Baptist. In many cases, research permits have been denied or revoked without clear explanation. Some promising scientific projects were abruptly shut down mid-process, and in some instances the results were quietly buried under layers of ecclesiastical review. The line between reverence and concealment grows increasingly blurred, and this raises a serious question. Is the Vatican deliberately preventing the world from knowing the truth? To understand the Vatican's position, one must first grasp the weight of the theological implications. If the DNA of Christ were ever definitively sequenced, it would ignite a global firestorm of debate. Was Jesus fully human genetically? Would any anomalies support or refute traditional teachings of divinity? Could this genetic code be compared to Mary's if her remains were ever found and tested? These are questions not easily handled within the framework of religious dogma. For an institution founded on mystery and faith, the cold objectivity of genetics poses a dangerous challenge. The Vatican, it seems, prefers to preserve the sanctity of belief over the unpredictability of science. If DNA could demystify the divine, it could destabilize the foundation of millions of believers' faith. This, many argue, is why the Vatican has intervened repeatedly, not out of malice, but out of existential necessity. Some researchers have gone further, suggesting that studies may already have been conducted in secret. Whispers of Vatican-sanctioned scientific research on relics date back decades. While few hard records exist, it is believed that limited tests on dried blood from certain relics have yielded partial genetic information, but the results were never published. There are even rumors that the Vatican has collaborated with select scientists under strict confidentiality agreements. In these alleged cases, the Church maintains full control of the data, and any conclusions deemed disruptive are quietly buried. One such story involves a team in the 1990s who reportedly extracted DNA from a relic containing dried blood. According to anonymous accounts, the DNA showed an unusual chromosomal structure, neither fully explainable nor clearly divine. The research was immediately halted. The samples were returned, and the team was reportedly instructed never to speak publicly of the results. Whether fact or fabrication stories like these continue to fuel the theory that the Vatican knows more than it is willing to reveal. In recent years, the explosion of biotechnology has introduced an even more controversial angle to the debate: the possibility of cloning. If DNA from Jesus truly existed and was fully sequenced, could someone somewhere recreate him? The implications are staggering. A cloned Christ would be a biological marvel, but also a theological nightmare. Would he possess divinity or just humanity? Would people follow him, fear him, worship him? Understandably, this scenario has terrified church officials and fueled further secrecy. Even the mere suggestion of cloning Jesus, no matter how speculative, poses a crisis of unprecedented magnitude for Christian theology. And so, any research into Christ's DNA is treated with utmost suspicion, if not outright hostility. Better perhaps to let the divine remain unknowable. The Vatican's ability to control narrative and access is no accident. As a sovereign entity with its own laws, borders, and intelligence apparatus, it has the power to seal documents, restrict movement, and dictate the handling of any sacred object within its walls. In this way, secrecy itself becomes a tool of control used not just to protect relics, but to preserve religious orthodoxy. This has led to growing criticism from scientists, scholars, and even some within the clergy. They argue that knowledge and faith should not be mutually exclusive, that understanding the physical reality of Jesus does not erase his spiritual significance, and that the suppression of science only deepens doubt rather than shielding belief. But for now, the Vatican's grip holds firm. Access is limited. Information is tightly managed, and the DNA of Christ, if it exists at all, remains locked behind closed doors, both literally and metaphorically. At the intersection of faith and science, there lies a realm of questions too dangerous for easy answers. The Vatican's unwillingness to allow full scientific inquiry into the DNA of Christ is not merely a matter of reverence. It is a reflection of how deeply the Church fears the consequences of clarity. To believe is to embrace mystery. But in an age of information, how long can mystery survive? What do you think? Should the Vatican open its relics to modern science? Or are some mysteries meant to remain untouched? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. This is a conversation that bridges faith, ethics, and the very core of human identity. You've heard of the Vatican's catacombs, its secret archives, even whispered rumors of forbidden texts. But few know of something far more unsettling. A hidden network of silent observers. They don't wear robes. They don't carry crosses. They blend in, investigate quietly, and vanish. Their mission to monitor miracles and hunt heresy. Not to celebrate the divine, but to control it. For over 1,000 years, the Church has sent these hidden agents to investigate claims of bleeding statues, visions of the Virgin, or unexplained healings. They don't arrive to believe. They arrive to disprove. This is not a story of blind faith. It's the story of watchers who decide what the faithful are allowed to believe and what must be buried forever. While the common faithful often look to the Vatican for inspiration, doctrine, and tradition, few are aware that behind the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica exists a quieter, more cautious authority. This force grew out of the Holy Office, the precursor to what we now know as the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith (CDF), the same institution that once presided over the Inquisition. Today, this evolved body no longer seeks heretics at the stake, but its mission remains protective and investigative. It watches. And when rumors of divine phenomena emerge, a statue crying blood, an unexplained healing, an apparition in a remote village, the wheels begin turning in Rome. Rarely do such events escape notice. Even more rarely do they get publicly endorsed. At the core of this entire network lies the second point of mystery, a methodical, almost forensic investigation process into alleged miracles. Contrary to popular belief, the Vatican does not jump to celebrate divine phenomena. It does not applaud every vision or unexplained occurrence. Instead, it applies the most skeptical lens imaginable, one that blends modern science, psychology, theology, and even covert observation. When a miracle is reported, a small team, often composed of medical experts, theologians, and anonymous observers, is quietly dispatched to the location. These are not public figures. They do not arrive in robes or crosses. Many are former academics or clerics trained in discernment. Their goal to observe, to interview, and to disprove. That is the default assumption that the miracle is not real unless proven otherwise. They question witnesses independently. They collect medical records. They consult with local clergy. In some cases, they even exhume bodies, test soil and water samples, and install hidden cameras. Their approach is often more stringent than secular investigations. And if fraud or psychological influence is even remotely suspected, the case is closed quietly with no fanfare. Perhaps most chilling is the fact that these investigations are rarely disclosed to the public. Many alleged miracles never even reach the ears of the Vatican's higher authorities, having been intercepted and debunked by these local watchers beforehand. The public sees only a few approved miracles per century. Behind each, there are hundreds of rejected ones stored in silent files or archived without trace. The Church has learned over centuries of schisms, false prophets, and public hysteria that uncontrolled belief in the miraculous can be dangerous. A vision in a village could become a cult. A claim of divine healing could lead to disillusionment or even death. And most importantly, anything that challenges Rome's theological centrality must be examined with caution. This is why many cases, even those with considerable local popularity, are kept under wraps for decades. The Vatican rarely makes public announcements until every possible natural explanation is ruled out. And even then, approval doesn't come from excitement. It comes from necessity. It must serve doctrine, not disrupt it. One of the most unique characteristics of this system is its facelessness. There is no office plaque that reads Department of Miracle Verification. There are no Vatican press conferences introducing lead investigators. Even in official documents, the contributors are often listed as confidential theologians or unnamed experts. Their anonymity serves a purpose. It protects the process from outside influence, prevents media pressure, and ensures their mission truth through silence. Some of these watches serve for decades, retiring, without ever being publicly acknowledged. In rare cases, their notes may surface in Gnost archives, revealing just how close some phenomena came to being recognized and how narrowly others escaped condemnation. Throughout modern history, we can trace the fingerprints of these watches on countless phenomena. In Medjugorje, the Marian apparitions of Bosnia-Herzegovina that drew millions of Vatican observers have visited repeatedly, but the Church has delayed full endorsement for over 40 years. In Fatima, even after the approval of the 1917 apparitions, decades passed before parts of the Third Secret were published. While speculation about Vatican interference raged in Gabandal, Spain, where visions of the Virgin Mary and prophetic warnings were reported, investigators were dispatched quietly, and the case was never officially approved, though never fully condemned. In each case, testimonies were recorded. Evidence was gathered and decisions were often made behind closed doors, not based solely on spiritual merit, but on political, doctrinal, and psychological factors. There is another dimension to these investigations' utility. A miracle to be recognized must not only be inexplicable, it must be useful to the Church's mission. It must reinforce doctrine, encourage faith, and not introduce chaos. This is why spontaneous reports of talking statues, bleeding crucifixes, or divine messages delivered by non-Catholics are often swiftly dismissed. Even if the event is compelling, it cannot be allowed to undermine the Church's authority or theology. Some miracles, it seems, are just too disruptive even for the divine. And what happens to the miracles that fail the test? Nothing, or rather something much more strategic. They disappear. Files are archived. Interviews are marked confidential. In some cases, witnesses are encouraged to stop speaking publicly, often under the warning that continued sensationalism could lead to spiritual error or even excommunication. For every saint canonized due to miracles, there are countless anonymous visionaries, silenced healings, and censored phenomena. It is not denial. It is containment, depending on one's beliefs. This system may seem like either a noble guardian of truth or a mechanism of control. The Church would argue that such caution is necessary, that it protects the faithful from deception, hysteria, or false hope. Critics would argue it is suppression, the intentional burying of experiences that don't fit a specific worldview. But no matter which side one takes, the truth is inescapable. Miracles are not free to roam in Catholicism. They are watched, measured, contained. The watchers are always watching. So what do you think? Is the Vatican protecting the faith or hiding things that are beyond its control? Do you believe there were real miracles that were silenced simply because they didn't fit the doctrine? Or do you think the Church's caution is necessary to prevent chaos and superstition? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We genuinely want to hear your perspective on these secret watches. Who knows? Maybe a miracle is being monitored right now, and we have no idea. It doesn't appear on any official floor plan. No photos, no visitor has ever stood before it and lived to speak of it. But within the oldest and most secret heart of the Holy See, it's there hidden, locked, sealed behind layers of marble shadow and centuries of silence. They call it the room that must never be opened. To some, it's just a legend. To others, a terrifying truth. Because behind that door, it said, lies a vault of forbidden knowledge, ancient. Scrolls, banned gospels, alien records, and dark prophecies so devastating they were buried not just from the world, but from history itself. Even within the Vatican Apostolic Archive, home to 85 kilometers of sacred records, this room is untouchable. It's not just restricted, it is erased. No one speaks of it publicly, and when they do, it's always in whispers accompanied by warnings. Because whatever is inside was never meant to be seen. And yet, the world is changing. Technology advances, secrets leak. The question is no longer if the room exists, but why it's still locked. And what could possibly be inside? So dangerous, so unholy, it must never be opened. Hidden deep within the forbidden room of the Vatican, according to many persistent rumors, are the lost Gospels that have never been made public. These are said to be original, unaltered texts removed from the official Bible during the councils of Nicea and Constantinople. Unlike the New Testament scriptures we know today, these writings reportedly portray Jesus not as a divine figure, but as a mortal prophet with radical social ideas, teachings that directly challenged the religious and political order of his time. Most notably, one of the texts is said to document the final days of Jesus' life, not authored by Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, but by a mysterious eyewitness never recognized by the Church. If such documents truly exist, they could shake the foundations of modern Christianity, suggesting that what we believe today may be a carefully curated version rather than the full original truth that once existed. Yes, it may sound like the plot of a science fiction novel, but the Vatican has long had an interest in astronomy. Its own observatory, the Spec Vaticanana, has tracked celestial activity since the 16th century. Some insiders allege that within the room lies evidence of anomalous cosmic signals, even direct accounts of contact or sightings dating back to medieval times. Could these include transcripts of Vatican-sanctioned investigations into visitors from the sky? If so, they would force the Church and humanity to reevaluate our place in the universe. One of the most chilling contents rumored to be locked away inside the Forbidden Room is a collection of ancient exorcism manuscripts, not the well-known magical texts like the Lesser Key of Solomon, but handwritten, encrypted documents compiled by Vatican exorcists over centuries. These texts are believed to record hundreds of direct encounters with non-human entities, real cases of demonic possession that occurred across Europe and even within the Vatican itself. Some of the records describe in detail extremely dangerous exorcism rituals so intense that the priests involved reportedly suffered lasting psychological damage. If these documents truly exist, they not only confirm the real presence of dark supernatural forces, but raise a disturbing question. Is the Church hiding a far darker dimension of the spiritual world? One that humanity is not yet ready to face. While the world is aware of the three secrets of Fatima, fewer know that other prophecies may have been received and suppressed. Within the room may lie sealed scrolls reportedly dictated to mystics under divine trance, predicting not just the fate of the Church, but global catastrophes, celestial alignments, and the collapse of empires. Some claim these were written in languages not spoken by the scribes under conditions resembling modern accounts of channeling. If released, they might be interpreted as warnings or as threats to the political order. One of the strangest and most controversial theories surrounding the Vatican's Forbidden Room is the existence of biological specimens of unexplained origin believed to be the remnants of entities not entirely human. These objects may include ancient skulls deformed in unnatural ways, elongated bones with structures unlike any known primate, or even partially decayed soft tissue preserved under strict secrecy. The shocking part is this. According to scientists who reportedly collaborated on secret Vatican-funded projects, genetic analyses of these samples revealed DNA sequences that do not match any known species in modern biological classification systems. These anomalous relics are believed to have been collected by the Vatican from undisclosed archaeological sites or acquired through secret international channels. If these are more than just rumors, they raise questions that could overturn the very foundation of human knowledge. Is the biblical story of creation truly the only origin of mankind? And if beings exist with genetic codes foreign to humanity, where did they come from? Did they evolve parallel to humans? Are they part of a prehistory we've forgotten? Or more disturbingly, did they not originate from Earth at all? Perhaps these are the very questions that explain why the room must remain forever sealed. One of the most terrifying and mysterious rumors surrounding the Vatican's Forbidden Room is the existence of a strange red book unofficially known as the Book of Forbidden Names. This book is believed to be written in ancient Latin, not only preserving highly secretive occult knowledge, but also containing the true names of angels and demons, names strictly forbidden to be spoken aloud. In ancient beliefs and esoteric traditions, a true name is not just a label. It is a key that governs the essence, power, and presence of a being. Possessing or uttering such a name, whether divine or malevolent, could trigger unimaginable consequences, summoning binding or even permanent madness. According to legend, anyone who has tried to decode or translate this book has descended into insanity, becoming delusional or suffering irreversible psychological breakdowns. For this reason, the Vatican is said to have sealed the book inside a special lead box buried deep within the room that must never be opened as a way to isolate it completely from the human world. Its origin remains a matter of debate. Some scholars believe the Vatican obtained the book from the ruins of Babylon, a city once known for its ancient magical texts. Others believe it belonged to a secret apocalyptic cult, one that vanished without a trace, taking with it knowledge that transcends human limits. If this book truly exists, it is not merely an occult manuscript. It is a relic containing a power so dangerous it has been absolutely forbidden. And perhaps that is why the door to it must never be opened. Why seal it away? If these accounts are even partially true, the Vatican's reasoning becomes clear. Such materials are too powerful to be released into the world without consequences. They might fracture faith. They could destabilize nations, or worse, provoke a descent into chaos driven by knowledge we are not ready to wield. But some ask a different question. Does the Church hide these things to protect humanity, or to protect itself? What if these rumors are true? That the Vatican is hiding ancient manuscripts, unidentified beings, or even a book containing the true names of angels and demons? What do you think is truly being protected behind that sealed door? Is the Church trying to shield the world from a truth too dangerous to handle? Or is it concealing a history distorted by power? Would you choose to open that door to uncover the full truth, or leave it forever closed for the safety of mankind? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe in this legend, or is it all just myth?